Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall,
host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey there, thanks a lot for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. Glad to have you along today. Thanks a lot for giving this a 5-star review and a written review at Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you get an opportunity to do it, it's always helpful to the operation here. We're grateful that you do that and let other people know about the podcast. You have helped this thing grow by leaps and bounds with your support over the years. We're so thankful. And we also can't do it without your support of our sponsors. And the fact that we have great sponsors in the podcast means everything to the operation. So if you enjoy listening to the podcast, if you don't mind rating it, and if you don't mind supporting great sponsors like our title sponsor, John Ruhlman. John has been with us now for a few years, and he is absolutely the best when you're looking for the best prices and the best coverage in health insurance. usmedicalplan.com is his website. Now, all you need to do is set aside, let's call it a half an hour. Reach out, usmedicalplan.com, or call 877-410-4321 and tell them what you're paying right now and what you think about your coverage right now. Or maybe you have some questions. You're just not really happy with your current health insurance situation. They'll talk you through your options. And here's the thing. At U.S. Medical Plan, they know 100 different private health insurance companies. So they're going to get you the best possible price and never going to skimp on coverage. I know a lot of people think, well, if it's cheaper, it's not going to be as good a coverage. Not true. In fact, what you'll find when you work with U.S. Medical Plan is oftentimes you're paying more. You're paying much more than you should be for health insurance for not as great a coverage. 877-410-4321 or usmedicalplan.com. Glad to have you along, folks. Welcome in. Hope you're doing well. It is, I don't even know what day it is anymore. Is it Thursday? I think it is. I guess it doesn't matter. What is it Rush used to say? Wherever it is, wherever I am, wherever you are, it doesn't matter. As long as you're there and I'm here, as he used to say, it doesn't matter. Glad to have you along. Hope you're doing well today. Our telephone number, 855-STIGAL, if you want to get in here. 855-784-4255. You can find me online, chrisstigall.com. That's where the Harump Society is, our 3 times a week newsletter, social media, podcasts, if there's anything you might have needed. Did you happen to watch? By the way, Fast Eddie's in a brand new digs as well. So I just left D.C., back in my home studio. Fast Eddie is now relocated to a new bunker of his own. That looks pretty sharp, buddy. You know, people have been asking me that watch on the Salem News Channel. They say, where is Eddie? Is he in his own room? And I say, yeah, he is. He doesn't sit in the, he doesn't sit on my lap during the show. He has to be in his own quarantined facility. And so as people would tune in and watch, they would say, well, Stigall, I like your set, but what the hell is Fast Eddie in? Some kind of El Salvador prison? And I said, well, I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad before, but apparently now that we're on camera, people were acknowledging where you were sitting, and that it looked distinctly different to me. And so the suits all got together and said, well, we got to dress up Fast Eddie's environment. And so, ta-da, we're unveiling Fast Eddie's new environment today. I like that. What have you got going on in there?
Thank you, Chris. I have, I'm trying to do this on the, here we go. So we have nice. Godzilla up here, Harump for Trump. Yeah.
Oh, good. You got the I got it back there. That's nice.
See? Yeah. So we got Philly Fanatic going and
nice.
The Marshmallow Man, just in case. So we're ready to rock, man.
I think people are going to find this far more respectable. That everyone was concerned for your welfare, as though you'd been mistreated. Can you confirm or deny that you were or were not mistreated previously before this arrangement? In that facility, you weren't being mistreated. Okay.
I was not mistreated. No, not at all. The only thing is, I was coming from a radio background, and the TV guys said, hey, they had to beat it into me. They're just like, it's got to look better. What are you doing? So this is what I was doing.
Well, I'm glad to have you there, buddy. You look good, look sharp. Thanks for the time you put into making the new space. I'm sure there'll be many meetings about it later, but I say it looks fantastic. Good job. Well done.
Thank you, Chris.
Did you see Trump's cabinet meeting yesterday? I don't know about anybody else, but I think it's fantastic. I love when these people get together. It's like 2 hours long. I was in transit yesterday, flying home, and I'll get into some of the meeting in a minute. But can I just tell you something that happened on the way? I'm trying to be diplomatic about this and not offend. I don't want to offend anyone. I'll start by saying this is sensitive because, as you know, and I talk about, Dr. Ashley Lucas and the good people at PhD Weight Loss have helped me lose so far 30 pounds. Not doing a commercial here, just telling you the truth. That's true. Inside of 2 months, I've lost 30 pounds. In fact, Mike Gallagher, my colleague yesterday, reached out to me and he said, "Holy cow, Stigall, I was watching you in D.C. with Larry Elder. You look fantastic. How much have you lost?" I said 30 so far, going to try to lose 50. So I'm feeling good. I'm doing well. However, I don't care how much weight you lose. I don't care how thin you are. Is there an airline seat that's comfortable these days? I don't think so. I don't know too many people that feel like they're comfortable in an airline seat. Unless you're sitting in business class or first class, which ain't the way I travel. Maybe those seats are wide enough, and I'm told even those aren't particularly as spacious as they used to be. So I don't care how thin you are. These seats are narrow, and they're slamming you. And I happen to be on one of those little things I don't know. They're independent. I don't even know what you call them. They're like contracted with the airlines. They're tinier. They're not the 747s. They're like the, there's one row of seats on one side and then two on the other side. Narrow things. So you're already talking about skinny seats and then even skinnier. And the flight seems pretty full. But I happen to have lucked out, and I happen to be one of two guys. There's a very, very skinny guy across the aisle from me with a wide open seat next to him. And then there's me. Not as skinny a guy, skinnier than I used to be, but still not a skinny guy. I've got some more weight to lose. I'm in no denial about that. And I sit in my seat, and lo and behold, everybody's piled into the seats, and we're buckling up, and they close the door, and they say, "All right, we're going to take off here in just a little bit." And I think to myself, Yahoo! I got the whole flight to myself. There's nobody in my seat. And then the guy across the way, he and I kind of give a knowing wink to one another. He also has no one next to him in his seat. And we're the only two guys, the very skinny guy and me getting skinnier, but still not the skinny guy, in this one row, no seat. I finally confidently, and I never, when I'm sitting on the aisle, I never buckle. Never. Until I know for a fact, if I've hit the lottery and I'm going to have a flight without somebody next to me, I wait, because I don't want karma to strike me, and I buckle early, and then someone says, "Excuse me, sir, I'm in that seat next to you." It's a curse. And so, rather than ruin it, I say I'm not going to buckle until I know they've sealed the door and nobody else could possibly get on. So they do this. Seal the door, nobody else can get on. I confidently buckle. I settle in. I set my phone on the empty seat next to me. I'm getting ready to spread out and really enjoy myself. Now, Ed, this has never happened to me in my life. Never. I keep having these extraordinary experiences on airplanes. A woman comes up to me from behind. She's been seated in the back of the plane. She comes up behind me and and I'm trying to be, folks, I am not making this up. I am not in any way, shape, matter, or form being insensitive. I'm not shaming. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just telling you this is, I'd place my hand on a stack of Bibles and swear to the Lord Almighty, and He knows I'm telling the truth here. This is what happened. And I want you, Fast Eddie, I want you to tell me how you'd react if somebody says this to you. Now, remember, the very skinny guy is next to you across the aisle with an empty seat himself. And then it's you with an empty seat. And the woman comes up and she taps me, "Excuse me, sir." And she leans down and she goes, "May I go ahead and sit here next to you?" And I'm confused at this point because everybody's been on the plane. And she's already been back there. She's passed me. She's seated back there. I said, I guess, I'm sorry. She said, "Apparently there's a weight distribution problem." I swear to you, this woman says this to me. Now, I have been, in the last month, I've been in two situations that I can't even believe. I've never heard in my life. Everybody had to get off the plane because they've overfueled it. Never heard it in my life. Some of you pilots have since reached out to me to say that happens, but it's 1 in a million that ever happens, that you overfuel a plane and everybody has to get off, so they empty the fuel. It takes like 2 hours. But this time, I never heard that. Taps me, "May I sit next to you?" They need to redistribute the weight. Now, I'm not fully looking at this woman, and I don't know exactly what she means by this, but I'm like, whatever. It's been a day. I don't ask many questions. I just get up to be a gentleman, and I don't mean the woman any trouble. She's not the flight attendant. She's just a passenger, and she's telling me we need to redistribute the weight. Eddie, I don't know how else to say this. This is a healthy-sized woman.
Oh.
Like, probably needs 2 seats, if I'm to be wholly honest. And I'm not being cruel. I'm just saying I've already described we're in a tiny little tube as it is. And again, I'm not a small guy, but thanks to PhD weight loss, I now fit in the regulatory arm. I'm still in. I'm not lapped over the thing. This lady, I'm sorry, it's just true. Now there's a very, very skinny guy across from me who doesn't even take up his whole seat. He's Pop-Up Paulie skinny. He's like half of Pop-Up Paulie. Pop-Up Paulie, the thinnest man on staff. He's as skinny as Pop-Up Paulie, if not smaller. And he's sitting with nobody next to him. She taps me and says, weight distribution. She could benefit from the program I'm on. She squeezes in next to me, and now we're wrestling alligators to get seat belts wrapped around ourselves, and they're skinny over there sitting there nodding off with a nap with all this real estate next to him. I'm like, how did this happen to me? And of all the people on this plane, they chose. Now again, I'm 30 pounds down. I'll give you that, but I'm not the thinnest guy on the flight with an empty seat, is my point. And she comes up and says, excuse me, sir, weight distribution. What? That's our responsibility to redistribute weight once we've boarded the plane? And by the way, did a flight attendant come up to her and go, excuse me, miss, we need you to move up to redistribute the weight? That's a lawsuit waiting to happen, Ed.
Oh, absolutely. And she couldn't have given you a buffer? There was no buffer there?
No, but
who does that?
What are the laws of aeronautics that the passengers now have to do math on the weight distribution of passengers on the plane exactly? And when did that, or was the flight attendant now running around, and are we inspecting BMI for weight distribution? Is that a thing we're doing on flights now? This was a new experience to me, folks. I had to share it with you because I've never heard of it before. Maybe I was irritated because I thought I was entitled to an empty seat. But no, I had company the whole way home. And by the way, a baby behind me who didn't like the ear, the pressure in the ear as we were landing. That was also fun. Earbuds couldn't get loud enough for that landing. Oh, am I glad to be back with you, right here where I belong. And there you are. You look great. 855-STIGAL with us today. 855-784-4255 as the Thursday edition rolls on. Good to have you along. Hope you caught. If you did, I know a few of you reached out to me last night to say you enjoyed the Larry Elder special on the Salem News Channel. If, in fact, you do watch on the Salem News Channel, thanks a lot for joining us. We're grateful that you do. You can always catch the Salem News Channel on the app. Click Watch Live. Really easy to use. It's right there. And so if you haven't done so yet, hope you'll check it out. I think I might end up taking that hour and making a podcast out of it, too. That remains to be seen. We'll talk about it, but we got a couple of days to decide on it. But also have some interviews from the House that I thought were pretty good, but I may not have time for in the next day or so. So we'll probably put that together as part of a special 100 Days podcast. We had some fantastic coverage, I have to say. Fast Eddie, this show, the entire team in D.C. just knocked it out of the park. It was great to be in the swamp for a few days to get to the bottom of everything. Aaron McGuire yesterday, if you were listening to the show, and I would commend it to you if you didn't get a chance. We wrapped up the show yesterday with Republican strategist Aaron McGuire, and she gave me even more confidence, and I trust her implicitly. Like she's good. She knows her stuff. By the way, she dropped a little nugget on us, if you were listening, that ended up coming to fruition. We played the rally Tuesday in Michigan of Trump, and he brings Scott Jennings up. And I don't know if you heard the show, but Aaron McGuire said, Chris, keep your eye on Scott. I don't think this is so much about CNN. I think you may find now that old Cocaine Mitch, the old crow, has decided he's not going to run for Senate down there. He's hanging it up. I bet you, because I guess that's where Scott's from. I didn't know that. I bet you Scott runs for Senate in Kentucky. And lo and behold, Scott Jennings says yesterday, Ed, we broke something here, courtesy of Aaron McGuire. Scott Jennings says, I'll run for Senate in Kentucky if Trump wants me to. How about that?
Like how do I get that out there that we said that like way early in the morning?
Yeah, Aaron, I don't know if they were listening. I don't know what it was, but Aaron let the swamp know and the cat out of the bag, and by noon, Scott Jennings said, I'll run for Senate in Kentucky if Trump asks me. And it sounds, I tell you what, Trump bringing him up on the stage, that's about as good as an endorsement as you can get. So we'll keep a sharp eye. We know Trump loves good communicators around him, and yesterday's press availability with the White House and the cabinet was spectacular. 2 hours of all of them kind of sharing their agenda items, and then Trump taking questions. This one got probably more attention than any other in the cabinet meeting, and still kind of makes me go, huh? What was that now? It was RFK Jr. I just had this a minute ago. Where did that go? Oh, yeah. Now, I'm not laughing at what he said. I'm stunned at the way he dropped it. Let me give you Rubio first, who, by the way, also dropped his own truth bomb. Both of these were the ones, and I caught these midair yesterday, so when I landed, I'm trying desperately to figure out what in the world is RFK Jr. talking about. Start with Rubio at 1795 and what he unloads as Secretary of State to the whole media and everybody in the cabinet while they're sitting there.
Something else we got out of the business of, well, it wasn't widely reported, or maybe it was. We had an office in the Department of State whose job it was to censor Americans. And by the way, I'm not going to say who it is. I'll leave it up to them. There's at least one person at this table today who had a dossier in that building of social media posts to identify them as purveyors of disinformation. We have these dossiers. We are going to be turning those over to these individuals.
Me or Elon? We can follow up with the media story.
Well, we are going to turn over these dossiers to the individuals, and they'll decide whether they want to disclose it or not. But just think about it. The Department of State of the United States had set up an office to monitor the social media posts and commentary of American citizens to identify them as vectors of disinformation, when we know that the best way to combat disinformation is freedom of speech and transparency. And so that's what we're going to be in the business of doing. We're not going to have an office that does that.
Yeah. And I'll try to get RFK Jr. in here. I don't mean to bait you with it. 1796. Then this.
We have ended HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going.
So that's that. I mean, what? I'm going to need a lot more on that. I don't know about you, what exactly that means or what that entails. But Rubio and RFK Jr. are the takeaways of that meeting, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. We'll spend some more time on it in a minute. I don't know. Is that what he means? Does he mean Dr. Rachel Levine, who was neither a doctor or an admiral? I'm sorry, Admiral Rachel Levine. My apologies to the good admiral, who was neither an admiral nor a Rachel. Is that what he meant, the gender butchery that was going on at HHS under his leadership, pretending to be a her in a skirt, calling her admiral? Is that... I don't mean to belabor this, but I feel like that's kind of an important point. I really hate to gloss over this. Could we do this one more time? 1796. And am I the only one that feels like this is the biggest news to come out of yesterday that almost no one is reporting on? Because I feel like this is a really important thing that everyone's kind of going, hey, did you see that Trump and Terry Moran interview? It's like, I did, but that was yesterday before RFK Jr. said this. One more time?
We have ended HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, the 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration.
Okay, so that didn't get much more attention, coverage, or definition or explanation than that. Now, the Daily Beast immediately jumps on it, which tells me RFK Jr. is clearly telling the truth and is onto something here. So leftists will undoubtedly attack this as being untrue. RFK Jr. pushes conspiracy. HHS forced kids into slavery. So that means this is 100% true if the Daily Beast is out denouncing it. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. claimed that he is shutting down an alleged government connection to child sex trafficking, widely discredited as a conspiracy theory. The Health and Human Services Secretary referring to an unsubstantiated allegation made by Trump that more than 300,000 migrant children disappeared during Joe Biden's presidency. Now, let me ask you something here. Do you think that RFK Jr. would make this up to make Trump look better? Do you think RFK Jr., who is now the Secretary of Health and Human Services, would just make up out of whole cloth that department was trafficking children and engaged in human trafficking and slavery if he didn't believe it to be true? Do you think he's doing it just because Trump made a claim once? I don't. Remember, this is a Democrat. I mean, even 2 days ago in an interview when asked about him, Trump said, well, he has some pretty unique ideas about a lot of stuff, and they kind of laughed, meaning there's a lot of stuff he says that Trump does not agree with and wouldn't be part of his agenda, but he's right where he needs to be at HHS in making America healthy again. So it isn't as though these guys are, simpatico, locked at the hip on every issue. In fact, I would guess probably most issues they're not locked at the hip. So I don't think RFK Jr. says this in the cabinet meeting, unbeknownst to anybody, by the way, in the room that he's going to say it, but he's not saying it just to make Trump look better. It doesn't make anybody look good. This is alarming stuff. Trump suggested the children may have been trafficked as sex slaves, although there is no evidence to support that claim. RFK Jr. sure seems to think so. I'd love to hear more. Wouldn't you? I'd love to get an interview with this guy. Excuse me. Trump suggested children might have been trafficked as sex slaves. RFK Jr.'s claim at the White House was the latest in a series of accusations by Trump officials against the previous administration. Some experts have said are a distortion of the facts. So the Daily Beast has gone from a wild conspiracy theory to now, quote, a distortion of the facts as you read a little deeper. We have ended the HHS's role as the principal vector in this country for child trafficking, you heard him say. The country's top health official made the claim as top Trump officials touted their accomplishments during a cabinet meeting to mark the first 100 days. Kennedy's accusation about missing migrant children was similar to the ones made by Trump both in interviews and on the trail. Trump's border czar Tom Homan has also vowed to track down migrant children he accused the Biden administration of losing. Homan claimed many of them would be forced into labor and the sex trade. Okay, so now we're getting a little closer to this. What they mean is what Trump was saying during the campaign trail. Here's one quote. We have 325,000 children here during Democrats, and this was done by Democrats who are right now slaves, sex slaves or dead, Trump said in his Time magazine interview in December. And what I will be doing is trying to find where they are and how to get them back to their parents. Republicans, writes the Daily Beast, started making accusations that some 300,000 migrant children were missing after August 2024. It found that 3,200 unaccompanied minors failed to show up for immigration court hearings from 2019 to 2024, and then another 291 migrant children did not receive court notices. The report stated that those who do not appear for the court are considered at higher risk for trafficking, exploitation, or forced labor. Now, that's the policy director under what I believe was the Biden administration, not the Trump administration, saying that when these kids don't show up in court, they're at higher risk for sex trafficking and the like. Well, that's 300,000. So here again, if you read the facts of this story, 300,000 children did, in fact, under Joe Biden's watch, come into this country with illegal aliens and vanish off the records. There is no record of them being alive or around. They didn't show up. So is that what he means? That they're trafficking, they're smuggling children as slaves and sex slaves from the southern border? Maybe. Maybe that's what they mean. Or do they mean what Dr. Admiral, neither an Admiral nor a Rachel, was doing at HHS? Cousin It. I think it could mean this, personally. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy said his department has ended funding for gender mutilation surgeries and other kinds of gender dysphoria practices. Under the Biden administration, HHS advocated for gender-affirming care for minors, which, again, is pit of hell stuff. There is no such thing as gender-affirming. You are not assigned a gender at birth. You are a biological male or a biological female. It's the way God made you. There is no changing it. There is no assigning it, except by the Creator himself. Doctors do not get to pick out of a hat which you are, and then you don't get to change your mind. Your parents don't get to change their mind, like, taking in a car and deciding to have it detailed with some new things in the package that they didn't get initially. No, you are what you are. You're born what you're born. There is no changing that. Just in case I have to stop and say this again for somebody in this audience who may need to hear it. I'm sure not. In February, HHS rescinded previous guidance on this policy, saying it won't promote or support the so-called transition of a child from one sex to another and will enforce laws that ban or limit such procedures. Now, we know about Dr. Admiral Rachel Levine, who was neither an admiral nor a Rachel. We know that this person, Cousin It, was very fond of suggesting that even minor children ought to be read to, taught about, and harbored and entertaining these thoughts of changing their gender if they'd like to, and parents should be encouraged to do it, and children's hospitals should be encouraged to do it. I mean, again, straight from the pit of hell stuff. Now, what does this mean? What we know, and this is documented as true as well, not making this up, we know that there are minor children. There are not tons of cases, but there are a few. Minor children in public schools, particularly public schools, not exclusively, who have been courted and groomed by their transgender affiliate friends inside the school, oftentimes a teacher or some kind of counselor, some kind of administrator, who's sympathetic with the kid who says he or she isn't the gender they were born, and they say, well, come with us. We'll keep it secret from mom and dad. We don't need to tell them anything. I tell you what, I'll take you shopping for clothes for the gender you feel you are. These are true stories. It's happening. This is 100% happening. And there are many school districts and many Democrats across the country that are fighting hard. California has legislated that it is effectively an illegal practice for a teacher, an administrator, a school counselor to tell a child's family that he or she has come to school and said, I want to be a different gender. They're legislating it in places like California to keep it secret. And when Cousin It, Admiral Rachel, neither an admiral nor a Rachel, was running HHS, this person was peddling this at the top, encouraging people in authority, doctors, teachers, principals. Hey, let's shepherd these confused, anxious young people. Let's pump them full of chemically castrating drugs. Let's maybe entertain surgeries. Let's let them dress up differently. Let's give them different names and pronouns. And let's most of all keep it from mom and dad because they're bigots and backwards and they just don't understand that their son William is no longer a William, but he'd prefer to be called Emily. His bigoted parents don't understand, so let's keep it secret. And some parents have even been kept in the dark to the extent that some, and I'm not saying most, I don't want to be hysterical about this, I'm just saying there are documented stories of some public school teachers taking these minor kids out of the classroom and even bringing them home with them to lead their lifestyle as they see fit, free from mom and dad. In fact, there's a court case right now, I believe in Colorado, where a parent of, albeit it's a 17-year-old, almost 18, almost an emancipated adult, teachers of a 17-year-old whose parents want the child back. The kid has gone home to live with a transgender teacher and his boyfriend. So in other words, a gay couple, one of whom is pretending to be a woman. And they've taken in the 17-year-old so that he can now pretend he's a woman and live with them. And the parents are suing, trying to get the kid to come back. Now at 17, I get it, the kid doesn't want to come back or whatever. But my point is that trafficking? Serious question. I mean, I don't want to be hysterical about this, but I do want to ask the question, is that kind of behavior grooming/trafficking in your view? Fast Eddie, can I get a ruling on it? If you say no, that's okay. It's one host's opinion. But if you have adults shepherding minor children through chemically castrating drugs or dressing up as a different gender or changing their name, all without the parents' wherewithal, is that trafficking in your view?
I do, but I just don't know that it gets to the number that you cited in that story. So I do believe that it's trafficking. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I don't know that it's. I agree with you there. I would not be comfortable saying that is 300,000 stories like that, but there's some of that. The point is, between what HHS was doing in allowing illegals to pour over the country and put minors into our system that are unaccounted for and off the record, coupled with their policy, the Biden administration's policy, of shepherding minors through this gender-bending Frankenstein's monster crap, HHS now is a department that once upon a time you wouldn't have much thought about it, but it has now become one of the most sinister agencies in the country. And incidentally, if you've actually seen the headquarters in that place, I drove by that the other day while I was in D.C. a couple of days ago. It's an equally ugly building. It looks like stuff like this would happen in that building. What a godforsaken, ugly building HHS is. Well, that worked. That worked, I think. Glad to have you along, folks. Sorry, little technical situation that doesn't bother you. Won't impede the show at all. Just trying to get things. You know, when we're constantly on the move like this, the show's just constantly moving. We're moving like a... I feel like we're smuggling people the way we've moved around the country here lately. But anyway, I think we're getting settled here. You have a phone call on your mind. You can always reach me if you want to at 855 Stigall, 855-784-4255. Yeah, if you want to reach me. Coming up, we're going to talk with Jim Pfaff. Are we getting any closer? Are we getting any closer to one big, beautiful bill? That is the question at hand, and he's going to score a little of that coming up in just a bit. Let's go to more of the press briefing yesterday at the White House with the cabinet. It was tremendous. Each one of them had something great to offer. I mean, gosh, in no particular order. Let's go to Secretary Hegseth in 1790. Take a listen.
Mr. President, I think we're controversial because we're over the target. And like so many things, Mr. President, you inherited a demoralized military that couldn't recruit, that was perceived as weak after what happened in Afghanistan and elsewhere because of Joe Biden. And what we have seen since your election and the inauguration has been nothing short of a recruiting renaissance. Decades, it hasn't been decades since we've seen this kind of recruiting in the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force. The men and women of America want to join the United States military led by President Donald Trump.
And the police, by the way.
Absolutely.
And fire. I always mention the fire, but police and fire. But the police and fire likewise they have waiting lists now. And 6 months ago was a disaster.
Truly historic. We can barely absorb the volume and retention as well. Men and women in the military who don't want to get out now that they have a real commander-in-chief. We're reinforcing standards. We're going to be fit, not fat, in our formations. We welcome back all the the folks that were forced out because of the COVID mandate. We ripped wokeness out of the military, sir, DEI, trans, and it's Fort Benning and Fort Bragg again at the DOD. We're rebuilding the military, sir. The Golden Dome is well underway. F-47, reassuring allies and deterring enemies. We found nearly $6 billion in DOGE savings that we're going to reinvest, including $50 billion from the Biden administration focused on things like climate that have nothing to do with lethality and warfighting. And we will have, as you said, sir, the first $1 trillion budget that we plan to spend wisely on behalf of our warfighters. From day one, sir, we've helped get 100% operational control of the border, coming alongside DHS and CBP. We've got 11,000 troops on the border who now, because of the new national defense area, sir, can help detain illegals at the border and hand them over to CBP. It used to be if you saw camouflage on the border, they could hold binoculars, and that's it. And now we can detain and assist, and we're going to get 100% operational control of that border. Our NATO allies know they have to step up. The Houthis in the Middle East are feeling the weight of American power, and we're deterring communist China. So because of your leadership, sir, I believe we're making the military great again.
Great stuff. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy up next in 1791. Take a listen.
So, CAFE standards, we have the fuel economy standards on vehicles that are going to go to 50 miles per gallon. We are going to rewrite those standards, bring it down to something that's far more reasonable. Elon's fine with that, I hope. But it's going to drive down. It's going to drive down the price of a car in America, making cars more affordable for families. Also, Biden had the social cost of credit when we build infrastructure, roads, and bridges, adding 3 to 5% on infrastructure costs. We've gotten rid of the social cost of carbon, driving down the cost to build roads and bridges across the country.
And on top of all of this, yesterday they announced that Ukraine has signed a deal to give the United States access to rare earth minerals. Now, this is a huge development, of course, because this is going to officially fund our effort there. This actually makes economic sense, ladies and gentlemen. We have now a vested economic reason to be in Ukraine and be helpful to Ukraine. I can get behind this. If we're harvesting rare earth minerals in Ukraine and it's benefiting our economy, okay. Now we can talk about dealing with Putin in an equitable way that actually benefits us and matters here. Ukraine signing a deal with the United States, giving them access to Ukraine's rare minerals as they continue to work with the Trump administration in an effort to end their 3-year war with Russia. So that was a big development yesterday. Winning all the way around.
Everybody talking about the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again. Balance of Nature says, welcome to the party. They've been working hard, producing a vibrant nutritional supplement second to none for many, many years before it became fashionable. So many other people use chemicals and additives for their supplements, but Balance of Nature is made solely from whole food ingredients. And while other methods sacrifice nutritional quality for the sake of profits and volume, Balance of Nature, they use an advanced cold process, a vacuum cold process. It includes freeze-drying their fruits and vegetables into a fine powder, and so that allows them to retain as much nutritional value as possible. And they don't cut corners, for volume or other things, as maybe some other supplements do. Balance of Nature packs a real nutritional punch, and that's the whole reason to take Balance of Nature. Get the most nutrition for the sake of your good health. And if you use my name, Chris, as your promo code right now, you'll save 35% off your order, and they're even going to ship it to you for free. Plus, a money-back guarantee if you're not happy. Call them, 800-2468-751. Use the discount code Chris. Once again, don't forget the discount code Chris for that big 35% off savings plus free shipping. Order online, balanceofnature.com.
Hey there, it's Chris, back on the phone with my dentist and friend Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, Pennsylvania, just off the Blue Route with new technology. You have not just new associates, but they brought new technology into the business to make it a little easier for patients.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time in dentistry. We have now introduced a three-dimensional x-ray called a CBCT scan in our office, which allows us to diagnose and things earlier for patients. My daughter is placing a lot of implants in the past had referred out. It's now being done in-house. And we also, we've been using dental or computer scanners for taking impressions for crowns for about the last 2 to 3 years. We now have introduced the next step, which is a milling machine, and we can now make crowns in the office. Things can be completed in the same day as opposed to having a temporary crown put on and 3 weeks later coming back and having a permanent crown put on. It's really a game changer, and it's a time saver for our patients to not have to make multiple visits to the office.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com.
Hey, good morning and welcome in on this Thursday edition of the Stigall Show. We are thrilled that you joined us, however you did, on great Salem radio stations all over the country, on the Salem News Channel. If you watch us, thanks so much. Take the app along with you. Click Watch Live, and you can do that anywhere. It's a super easy app to use. And always, those of you listening on the podcast, I appreciate it. I've had a lot of nice comments and compliments on our coverage of the 100 days in Washington, D.C. We had a lot of conversations you didn't hear, including this one. I wanted to let you in on one because this member of the House, he voted for the one big, beautiful bill, or he will, and he voted for reconciliation to get us to this point, but he had to hold his nose and do it. We talked with him before. He's a little less sunshine and rainbows. He's one of the more fiscal hawks in the Republican caucus. We talked with him at the House GOP media availability this week, and so I wanted you to hear, while you've heard a lot of very happy, ebullient talk, I wanted you to hear some pretty realistic, tougher talk from a budget hawk amongst the House Republicans as we talk about this big, beautiful bill. Eric Burlison's his name, congressman from Missouri. Listen in.
Congressman, great to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Chris.
You just got back into town, and so item number one, and I was intrigued by this, the House GOP, day one, brings all this media in to talk. Strategic?
Yeah, I think that the media want answers. You know, some of the phone conversations that I've had as we're leading into this is, where do you feel that Congress is? You know, Donald Trump in his first 100 days, I think he deserves an A grade. I think Congress deserves a D, if not an F, because we're just really not reciprocating the level of intensity and velocity that this administration has put forward.
I mean, I know you're a member and you're taking that on. I know you. I know your commitment to the Trump agenda. I know you had to swallow hard to get that reconciliation done. I get it. So you're owning it because you're part of the team, if you will. But is it? It's not you. I know it's not literally you. What's the holdup?
Yeah, I think this town definitely has a swamp. I mean, and it's a bipartisan swamp. They're trying to, we have to drag these people along, and sadly, leadership will protect those members. So a lot of the things that people are puzzled by and say, why haven't you passed, X, Y, Z? Well, it's because when you kind of pinpoint it, it's because there's the Senate, leadership decides that, well, the Senate's not going to pass it. So why are we going to put our members in the purple districts on a bad vote, or, something that why gives fodder to the opposition, and why do it? And I would say we must do it because the American people are expecting it. And then now the blame falls on me and other people. And whenever people ask, well, why aren't you doing something? And so I think that at the end of the day, we're all adults. We all should have to live up to our votes, and no one should be shying away from any votes. And we need to bring up all of these bills. All of the DOGE cuts need to be brought forward as permanent, as permanent policy changes.
Huge part of this is what everyone has seen: the USAID, the bloat, the waste, the fraud. It's rotten to the core. Can that be codified by you guys in the House? Again, if brought to a vote.
Yeah, absolutely it can. The question is, will it be codified? And can we convince everybody to get on board with it? If you've got a program, think of the most heinous USAID program. There's always somebody who thinks, well, it was just manipulated by the Democrats, but it's a good program whenever Republicans get in charge, and we don't want to give up that good program. Ronald Reagan said the most permanent, most eternal thing, closest thing to eternal life that we'll ever see on this planet is a government program. And it's true, because this town just wants to perpetuate it, even if it's something that was taken, abused, and thrown at our culture.
Yeah. The big beautiful bill itself. I understand Thune came. I've been really interested in this dynamic only because I know with McConnell there was no such thing as the Senate and the House even speaking.
Yeah.
I understand that's changed. I know some of your colleagues like Thomas Massey have said, I don't trust Thune, and didn't go with the reconciliation ultimately that you did.
Yeah.
You told me on the show, I had to swallow hard to do this, but you take Thune at his word. He's going to get this done on the Senate side.
Look, I mean, you trust but verify. And I think that at the end of the day, we wanted a commitment from Senate leaders that they were, whenever they sent back their resolution and it was at $4 billion of spending cuts, in the House we fought like hell to get to a point where we were at $2 trillion to $2.5 trillion in spending cuts. And this is this whole thing is a completely pathetic, attempt of actually getting to a balanced budget. When you think about it, we're going to spend over the next 10 years, $89 trillion, and we can't come up with $2.5 trillion in spending cuts out of an $89 trillion spend. It's pathetic. And so, but it's the most that we were able to get out of House leadership. We had that level of commitment early on from the White House. And when the Senate kicked back their spending cuts, and it was to the tune of $4 billion. We're talking trillions and they're talking billions. That's a huge gap. So we needed Thune to step forward. And I'm glad that Freedom Caucus made him come to the table, that we were able to have, get that meeting done, and we were able to get a verbal and written commitment to those levels, and a public commitment.
That's right. Do you think that this body, that being the House and the House Republicans, let's specify, Do they understand the historic nature of where we sit? I mean, do people feel that? I know you do. Again, I take you out of this, but there's something really historic happening here. If, right? But if. Yeah. Or is it business as usual for most of your colleagues, if you're to be honest?
I think that for some of my colleagues, they want to return to business as usual. They're not ready for this moment, but I think that we are at a historic moment. And I think that we're an inflection point. If we don't pull up on the handle or the steering wheel, we're going to crash this economy and this country into the ground. And I mean it. We're going to lose the world reserve currency. We're no longer going to be the economic superpower that we have been. We're seeing that was the trend line for the United States, and China was emerging as the number one superpower in the world. I don't want to look back on this time and say, I managed the decline and the complete downfall of the United States. I'm going to fight like hell to make sure that we return to our glory and we're able to pull this economy around.
You've been generous with your time. Final question. What if you think we're going to get that big, beautiful bill and it really does come to fruition and gets to the president's desk? I haven't really asked you if you think that's the case, but assuming you think that's the case, I want to manage expectations. What do you think when it's all said and done will be in this thing that makes it to the president's desk, if in fact you feel it will?
Yeah, I think it's at the minimum, we need to make sure that this bill is positive for the deficit. In other words, it reduces the deficit. At the very minimum, it has to break even. If it adds or exacerbates our deficit problems, I won't vote for it. There's a lot of people are not going to vote for it. So we got to at least improve the debt and the deficit, getting ourselves on a balanced budget. In order to do that, I think that you're going to have savings that we'll identify through Medicaid by finding the waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid, without cutting a single person off the system. Now, if it were me, I would do a lot more reforms to Medicaid. But I think that we can do a lot and save a lot of money without kicking anybody off of the system that truly needs it. And then I also think that we can find a lot of savings by repealing these green energy tax credits. Look, we had $8 billion designated for EV charging stations. That's absurd. That money belongs to the taxpayers. We need to pull all that back and then give it back to the taxpayers in the form of a tax cut.
Overtime, Social Security, tips, no taxes on those. Is that a possibility, or you think not?
All of that is a possibility and is unlocked if we find the reciprocal savings. And so long as we're finding the savings and we're finding the spending cuts, which they are there. I mean, there's a lot that we can do in Medicaid. There's a lot more that we can do in the DOGE efforts. A lot more that we can do with the green energy tax credits. And if we can just bring them all together, we can pay for all of the Trump wishes when it comes to tax cuts.
Yeah, I would never lecture you because I know you and I agree exactly with this. It always drives me nuts when I hear members of Congress talk about paying for giving people back their money. I've never looked at it that way. You can choose to spend money on something or not, but I don't think giving the voters back their money is something Congress has to pay for. Does that make sense? I don't like that language.
Yeah, I understand. Here's the dynamic. The taxpayer is paying for it either way. Yeah. Okay, you're paying for it right now through inflation, and you're paying for it through high interest rates. Yeah. So we are gonna be taxing the American people so long as we're spending money. Yeah. The truth is, it's a false promise to the American people to cut taxes without cutting spending. And at the end of the day, we need to cut the spending, and that way we can not just give people back their income taxes, but we can give them back the lost revenues through inflation and through interest rates.
You are one of the best. We are always grateful for your time. I hope whenever you can, you come back and join us, please.
Anytime, Chris. Thank you.
Great to see you in person.
Yep.
He is what you'd call a budget hawk, a fiscal hawk. This guy is, he doesn't suffer fools, and he was very clear. We can do a lot more than this. This whole, we're wringing our hands over $1.5 trillion. He goes, that's a walk on the park. That's a joke. Burlison's one of the great ones. We're going to stay in close touch with him. But like I said, not all sunshine and rainbows on Capitol Hill. Quick break on the Stigall Show. Glad to have you with us. Looking live at Oklahoma City, Oklahoma this morning. Glad to have you along. There's some big doings in Oklahoma before the Supreme Court right now. We're going to get into that in a little bit with Brian Jodice, who is with the American Federation for Students. And I I will tell you what Kavanaugh absolutely lowered the boom yesterday in Supreme Court hearings on extending charter school application opportunities to religious schools. That's something that's being fought in Oklahoma right now, and I think the Supreme Court is about to, by at least a 6-3 margin, say that if you are going to allow private entities to apply or public entities to apply for charter school funds, that's got to also extend to Christian schools and private schools. And Oklahoma, as I understand it, I think, and I'll get more specificity from him on this coming up, but as I understand it, in Oklahoma, they're fighting that right now. And that's before the Supreme Court. Big day yesterday for religious liberty is my point. The takeaway is, as I spent some time in the first hour talking about the horrors that can happen, and not everywhere and not with everyone, but the horrors that can and often are happening in our major public school systems, the answer is alternatives and school choice. And I think we're going to have another huge leap in Oklahoma and states like Oklahoma soon in school choice when it is ruled by the Supreme Court that, in fact, charter school money can be sent to private Christian organizations for educational purposes. That's going to be a biggie. Anyway, we'll get into that coming up. 855-STIGAL is the telephone number, 855-784-4255. Thanks again for a great week in D.C. It's only Thursday, but I feel like we did like 5 shows in 2 or 3 while we were in Washington. Had a lot of great stuff. Our 100 days of Trump coverage. We have some extra footage and some conversations that didn't make air and probably won't here, but I do think we'll make available on podcast probably over the weekend. So if you're not a podcast subscriber, this might be a good time if you're looking for some added insights and information and good stuff to listen to over the weekend. I would commend the Chris Stigall Show podcast to you. I hope you do that. Go to chrisstigall.com, and you can listen to it right off that site, or you can subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so that the fresh one every day pops up in your feed. And the Harum Society, as well as my social medias, it's all hooked up at chrisstigall.com. A little more about Abrego Garcia down there in the El Salvador prison. And I didn't spend time on this as it relates to Terry Moran and the Terry Moran interview with Trump. We did play a couple of those clips yesterday. Have you heard, and I don't care, I've rolled my eyes at the Abrego Garcia story so much now, I've moved on to other things, I really don't pay attention. Have you heard that the left's new charge is Abrego Garcia doesn't really have tattoos that mean MS-13 across his fingers? You know, Trump has famously held up the picture of the zoomed-in photo of his knuckles, and tattooed on them are various symbols and things that the White House says mean MS-13. I don't know gang nomenclature, so I'm going to have to rely on the White House here. But the press and the left, apparently, Fast Eddie, have come up with the theory that this is a lie. Is that right? That in fact, all the various little tattoos on his knuckles do not spell out MS-13. Is that their claim?
Correct, Chris. What he really is, he is a Maryland man. That's one of the tattoos. And also, we just found out he's a soccer fan, too. How about that?
Okay. So, sincere. Are you serious or are you being sarcastic that they're claiming that one of the tattoos on his knuckles represents Maryland?
No, not Maryland, but
okay.
Soccer, yes.
It wouldn't surprise. Yeah, his love of Maryland he tattooed on his knuckles. It wouldn't surprise me if that's what they tried to pull off. Anyway, Lindsey Graham talked about this yesterday, and the tattoos, because apparently they don't believe that they're real. The White House has lied about what they mean, so Graham felt it important to bring this up with the nominee to the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, and see what he had to say about it yesterday. 1798. Take a listen.
Based on your time as a DEA agent in the field, particularly in Mexico, these tattoos are consistent with MS-13 associations?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Do you know of any other set of combinations that would suggest some other organization this represents?
With this particular one, no, sir.
Democrats are like, I've never seen them go into overtime. They are tripling, quadrupling down on this guy. Like they will not accept that he's an MS-13 guy, and they're trying to spin it that the tattoos mean something else. Well, there's a guy whose life's work has been in it. He goes, that's what it means. Oh, and by the way, new court documents have surfaced that, yes, in fact, he is beating the hell out of his wife, who now claims he's this loving father that she wants home. Twice. She's gotten 2 court protective orders against him, and he said, I could kill you and nobody's going to miss you. Nobody's going to touch me if I do. She said it in the court document. Democrats continue to want to die on the hill of defending the guy. It's amazing. I hope they keep it up. I sincerely do. What I don't want you to have to keep up with, though, is pain. I don't want you to have to prolong and put off things that you enjoy doing, particularly as we come into the warm weather months, the backyard stuff. Maybe you like to get out, swim, boat, fish, whatever, and you're like, I hurt. And I just don't feel like doing it this year. Come on, don't live with it. Don't just grind it out and think you have to live with pain when Relief Factor, this anti-inflammatory, all-natural product made by some people who are so obsessed with getting you out of pain in a natural way, they believe their 3-week quick start can do it inside of 3 weeks if you try it. $19.95, less than $1 a day. It doesn't just mask the pain. It helps reduce and in some cases even eliminate it for good, but you have to make the call to try it. What, you're out less than $1 a day and maybe out of pain for good? Isn't that worth it? ReliefFactor.com or 800, the number 4 relief. It is great to be with you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're well. Hope your week is going along swimmingly. I'm grateful that you chose this show, however you chose it, to get here, to watch it, to listen to it, to catch it later on the podcast. Any way you watch and consume it, we're grateful because I know there's so many different places you could be to spend your time. I know that literally everybody, your next door neighbor's doing a show in his basement live right now. So there's no shortage of things to listen to consume, and watch. We're grateful you trust the pros. And I can just tell you, and may I just say, if I could for a moment, yeah, maybe it sounds like I'm kissing up gratuitously, but I mean it. I don't normally get out of the confines of my facility here. And so when we travel to D.C. to do the work we do, I have to say, they do a fantastic job every day, but the way these guys take care of me in D.C. when I visit, I can't thank them enough. G-Love, would you fire up the camera there in your room, please? The unheralded heroes of the show every single day that make the show work that you don't see, there they are in the room, except Iceman, who refuses to show his face because he's in witness protection. He always keeps a monitor in front of his face for some weird reason. But there's G-Love, and there's Pop-Up Paulie, and there's BK back there in the back who kept me caffeinated the whole time. I visit them, and you know what they told me, Ed? They told me that while I was there, we had that constant, unconscionable drilling. Fellas, any drilling this morning? Any drilling? The drilling has stopped. Now, did they do that just for me? Just to have like a Lawrence O'Donnell thing? They wanted to see if they could make the fathead on camera freak out? Was that a game you guys were you screwing with me, or do you think that's just the construction schedule?
It's just this construction schedule. So we're just trying to get you back here. We're lying about it all.
Thank you for being good hosts there, Paulie, BK, Alex, G-Love. You guys are great. I love it. I love seeing them. Whoever is working below them, though, Fat Steady, it's as close to doing harm to someone physically as I've ever come yesterday. I really about lost my mind.
Chris, it seemed like what the drilling and the sawing and the hammering and whatever else was going on was timed perfectly to your segments. It's like you're broadcasting, you're doing a monologue, and it was like, what? And then it just stops during the commercial break.
So I get back to my home-based studio, and the guys' first thing they say this morning is, zero construction today, Stigall. There's no construction at all. They're not doing a thing. Nothing. Sure they're not. Anyway, thank you, fellas. It was good to be with you in our nation's capital. 855-STIGAL is our telephone number. Big stuff happening. Speaking of our nation's capital still, big stuff happening over the Supreme Court yesterday. We wanted to go to Brian Jodice, who is the official national press secretary for the, well, I guess I don't call him press secretary, spokesperson. Sorry, I've been using White House nomenclature all week, Brian.
You're fine. That's
the American Federation
National
for Children.
Press Secretary. Yeah, you're good.
Oh, you really do have that title. That sounds very official. All right. Good to be with you this morning, Brian. There was some big doings yesterday. Kavanaugh, of all things. I've been a little dubious of Kavanaugh lately on some issues, but when it comes to school choice, when it comes to religious liberty, this court's pretty solid. Sounds like they're about to lower the boom again.
Yeah, well, good to be with you. And maybe the guys heard you say "drill, baby, drill" too many times on air. I don't know what happened there, but you're right. And look, I mean, we've seen school choice cases across the country over the last few years, and school choice has continued to come out on the right side. And what we're really talking about too, and we've talked about this a long time, Chris. You and I have spoken about it, and we've advocated for it at the American Federation for Children, is this idea that the fund should follow the students to the school that their family feels is the best fit. We're talking about empowering parents and families, investing in students, right? And we're moving away from this conversation on makes and models of schools, and we can have those conversations, but really for us, it's about letting parents and families pick the school that's the right environment for them. Invest in those kids, let them get to where they want to be. We've seen the Supreme Court uphold school choice across the country in my home state of North Carolina. Big wins, so we'll see the way it shakes out, but invest in students, let them pick where they want to go to school.
You're not here to talk about this, so I don't mean to put you on the spot, and I don't know how much of the specifics you know, but broadly speaking, the fight right now is about whether, I think it's specific to the state of Oklahoma, but it has, obviously, when the Supreme Court rules on this, it's going to have implications for every state. But I think right now we're talking about Oklahoma specifically. There's a fight in Oklahoma about whether state monies for charter schools can be used toward Christian education, Catholic schools and the like. Is that about right?
You're tracking it right, but we'll even go back to the Supreme Court case that went all the way to the North Carolina Supreme Court in my home state of North Carolina back in 2015, 2016 timeframe, and the same argument was made. We had vouchers come into the state, and they were saying you can't send public dollars to private Christian schools. We said, well, no, this isn't about sending the dollars to that school. You're investing in the student, in that student's name, to that school of choice. And so that's the way this conversation has continued to evolve. It's why we've advocated for school choice programs across the country. Again, let the money follow the kid to where their parent seems to be the right fit. That's what I think they're fighting for here. And then Oklahoma's also doing great things with special needs for students with school choice. And so we just continue to see, look, kids in the environment that's the best fit. Who do we trust to make the decision? Let their parents decide. Let everybody else kind of stay out of it.
This is a cousin to a case that came up before the Supreme Court a while ago, and the court came down heavily in favor of Christian schools. There was a state agency, I believe in Missouri, that was resurfacing playgrounds with old cut-up tires. The state was coming in and basically laying what is kind of a rubber mulch gratis to certain schools if they applied for it. Some religious schools were applying for it, and the state said, oh, no, we can't do that because you're a religious school. We're not going to give you any state help at your playground. And I believe that went to the Supreme Court, and I believe the Supreme Court said, no, you can't be bigoted against the religious school. If they apply for it, you got to give them the resurfaced playground stuff too. Is that about right? I mean, this keeps coming up.
I don't remember that one specifically, but I do remember, a great line from former Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal. And he used to say, and this always stuck with me, we didn't create religious liberty in America. Religious liberty created America. And I think that's an important thing to think.
So big, Brian Jodice, again, press secretary at the American Federation for Children. He's written the piece at the Washington Examiner, "The School Voucher Sky Isn't Falling." Now, I will tell you that, as you know, and we've talked a lot about, there are Republicans. In fact, I mentioned Oklahoma. There's a pretty healthy fight amongst Oklahoma Republicans right now. I would love to tell you that Republicans are kind of uniformly in support of the idea of school choice. They aren't, sadly. So talk about it.
Well, and listen, the premise of the piece, and we've talked about on these very airwaves, is, teachers union, sort of the big education loyalist, will constantly tell you and wring their hands and naysay about how school choice is going to ruin public education. On the contrary, this report out of Ohio shows you that kids on the Ed Choice program are doing extremely well. In fact, 32% more likely to enroll in college than their public school peers. But look, we just finished an incredibly big fight in the great state of Texas that was 20 years in the making to bring historic school choice, the largest day one program in the history of our nation, will be signed by the governor this Saturday. And that had internal dialogue and spars and debates between Republicans. So sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it takes a lot of effort to get the right Republicans elected that'll support school choice. But at the end of the day, it's about what parents and families want. Polling across the country, in Texas specifically, in Ohio, where we see this program working, has shown us that more parents and families want school choice. Now we've got another piece of data in the long line of reports that are positive on this issue that show that it's working for kids. And so we say, look, you got to put those those partisan conversations aside, and even if you're debating this inside your own caucus, what do parents and families want? They want more educational options. We're extremely grateful for that long journey it's taken in Texas, taken a little bit longer than most would think in a red state like that. But sometimes it takes the right leadership, the right movement to be there, Chris, and that's what aligned there.
Yes. And let's talk a little about what's in it, because the devil's always in the details. And I really believe when parents across the country, particularly in blue states that rebuff this, I think when parents start to hear about what Texas and other states have done, they're going to get hungry for it and demand it too. And I've always, as I've told you, any Democrat that actually embraces this instead of fights it, I think they will codify themselves in power permanently, which I don't want to help Democrats personally, but I mean, that's the secret sauce. You give parents what just happened in Texas in a blue state, you could be king, I think. Anyway, could you tell me what's in it a little bit?
No, I think that's a fair assessment. And what they've done in Texas, they've created educational savings accounts. They've put in priority on low-income and special needs students to be first in line to be able to get it. But essentially, it does what a voucher-like program would do, puts those monies in the hands of the student and that family to be able to choose the school that's going to work for them. They can then use it for some different services and different things in Texas. And you're right. I mean, I think your assessment is 100% right. And it's why I've talked to you before about this Educational Choice for Children Act that Congress, Republican-led Congress, has to get done in reconciliation this year, $10 billion tax credit, because what it does is allow states to stand up SGOs, scholarship-granting organizations, that can provide school choice in all 50 states. And there's the important part, Chris, because even in a blue state like California, you've got a chance now for families to get that taste of school choice like maybe they've never had before. And that can be a real game changer. It will supercharge school choice in states that have it already, like Texas, like my home state of North Carolina, like many other states across America, but it'll also give families a chance to get it like they've never had before, like you said, in those blue states. And it's such a winner. It's the right thing to do. It aligns with the president's vision of sending education back to the states and empowering parents. Congress has to get ECCA into reconciliation this year.
Are you guys a little amazed? We've talked before, and I still am amazed. It's been a few weeks since we talked, and I think I asked you then. There doesn't seem to be an aggressive pushback at Trump and Linda McMahon, the Secretary of Education's attempt to basically decentralize the Department of Education. I don't sense an aggressive pushback, and that used to be one of their hallowed grounds, the Randy Weingartens of the world.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, listen, the president's done a lot in 100 days, Chris. I'm sure you've been chronicling it on these airwaves. I mean, there's a lot for those opposed to his agenda to fight against. Specific to our issue, I mean, Randy and the Becky Pringles of the world will always, sort of scream to the hilltops about how this is going to ruin public education. Again, that report I wrote about in Ohio shows you the contrary. But maybe it just goes to show, and it's because of grassroots. Parents and families have been seeing this. You and I spoke about it last time, rapidly over the last 5 years because of the pandemic. They viewed education in a different way than we have before. And this idea that this middleman in Washington is going to be some magician as it relates to educational outcomes, it hasn't proven to be the case. And so the country's ready to take education in a different direction. School choice is incredibly important in that, because more families and parents want to be empowered with that choice. And maybe that's why we're seeing a little bit of a different tone. And if you watch some of that cabinet meeting yesterday, I mean, you've got Secretary McMahon sort of openly joking about, I've never worked so hard to get myself fired before. But she's right, and it's time to change this thing. We need a rapid, radical change, Chris, and that's what we're seeing.
And I want to be clear to people who have misgivings about this, and there are many, by the way. I know you. I know people, good friends of mine, who have gotten next to me and said, Stigall, you're advocating this school choice thing. I know where your heart is, but that's just a backdoor to more government control. I've heard that 1,000 times, and here's my answer to that. You don't have to take the money.
You don't have to go
Brian,
anywhere.
it's about as simple as that.
That's exactly. You don't have to. That's the beauty of the Texas program. You've seen people talk about it's going to do this. No one has to participate if they don't want to. It's about choice. It's about empowering families, investing in their students. That's the beauty of it. Let them get in the driver's seat of it. And we got to just get bureaucratic middlemen out of the way, Chris. It doesn't work.
Brian Jodice, the piece at the Washington Examiner, the school voucher sky isn't falling. Follow him on X as well at the American Federation for Students. Thank you, Brian, so much. It's great to catch up with you, my friend. No, I understand. I hear you. I know. Message received. It's on me. I own it. there are times, it's rare, but there are times that I feel that I probably don't always communicate something as well as I could. And yesterday was clearly one of those days that I was not communicating well enough to many of you who have problems with tariffs, who say this is costing Americans money. When this back and forth with China and other nations continues on between the Trump administration and China, it ends up hurting us, the consumer, in the short term. And Stigall, I can't believe as a conservative you don't care about that. I kept hearing versions of that yesterday as if I'm now some sort of tariff-embracing populist for all time, and that's not true. That's not what I meant. That's not what I'm implying. What I was trying to drive home is that if everything were truly, truly fair trade, I am 100% a fair trader, and I am not pro-tariffs. Ideally, there would be none. That is where we would like to get to, and I believe that's what Trump is saying he'd like to get to. But you can't possibly hold the point of view as an American citizen. It makes sense for companies here to pay out the nose to sell our goods overseas, but we make people overseas pay nothing to sell their goods here. That just doesn't, I don't understand as an American how you could hold that point of view. So I got a note from someone yesterday close to me, my in-laws, as a matter of fact. And I think we may do this tomorrow. Ed, is that right? We're working on maybe tomorrow doing this. My in-laws, I think I have told you, are in the hobby business. That is the hobby train business specifically. They have done this. My late father-in-law and my mother-in-law at present have owned what is a very well-known in that community, people that do model trains. And if you know anybody that's into model trains, it's a huge, huge industry. And, I mean, conventions and, you know, if you don't do it, you don't know. And I didn't know, but when I married into this, I learned. And it's just an amazing, it's a huge group of people. It's a society of people. It's a huge business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business, model trains, hobby trains, and things like that. And my in-laws have sold all kinds and sizes. And, in fact, they even got into the manufacturing of their own products and selling their own products at different train shows and in their store and things like that. Guess where most model trains are made, Fast Eddie? Where do you think most model trains are made?
I'd have to guess the People's Republic of China, right?
Yeah, that's right. They're almost entirely made in China. And so my sister-in-law, whose husband, my brother-in-law, is also in this business, reached out to me yesterday and said, Stigall, we're Trumpers. You know that. We love you. They don't call me Stigall. But that tone was there yesterday. They were like, I don't think you know exactly what this is doing to our math here, but just so you know, literally everything we do, almost everything we sell, everything that's the bottom line of the model train hobby industry is largely because it's made in China. And we're now having serious conversations about shutting everything down. Because if this goes on, we just simply can't afford to operate. Well, I'm being honest with you and laying myself bare here because this is not like I talk about this in the abstract. This is very real to my personal family. And they said to me, Chris, we understand what Trump's doing. We understand why the dynamic has to change. But at present, our entire business is built on manufacturing this stuff in China. And we're sunk if this continues. So what do I say? What do you say? And my brother-in-law's boss, who runs a larger company out of Tennessee who does this for a living, they've basically signaled that they will probably have to shut their doors if this continues for too terribly long, this tariff war with China. So I said, I tell you what we're going to do. I'd like to have your boss, your owner, on the show tomorrow. I want to talk this out. Because this is real. This is real. And it's not just the hobby train industry. I understand. There are a lot of small businesses across the country who get their products and sell things or whatever courtesy of China. You know my position on that. I think most Americans share the position China is an enemy. We do entirely too much business with them. And if we're going to do business with them, they cannot exploit and take advantage of us. And they have been. And I don't think most people in the hobby business or anywhere else dispute that. But we do have a short-term problem. And that is, what do these businesses who are wholly dependent on them do? That is something we have to tackle. I realize that is a reality. I am not sticking my head in the sand about it. So those of you that called me yesterday and said, I can't believe you're a conservative and you're destroying businesses. I know about this personally, and we're going to talk it out tomorrow, all right? Just so you know. I'm not dodging those of you who were critical of the show yesterday. I want to welcome aboard the show our new sponsors at Texas Bullion Exchange. Great guys. If you go to buytexasgold.com, you will see my smiling mug right there at the top of the page. Since leaving the gold standard in 1971, the dollar has lost over 90% of its purchase power. Now, if you think about that, what used to cost $1 now takes $10 or more. That's pretty stunning. And if you think about gold, on the other hand, it's held strong. It's increased over 7,000%, as a matter of fact, in that very same window of time. So if you're holding a bunch of savings in cash, that's losing buying power by the day. Texas Bullion Exchange wants to help you diversify a portion of that wealth right now, roll over maybe an existing part of your IRA or the entire thing into physical gold and silver. And right now, for every $1,000 you diversify in gold with Texas Bullion Exchange, you'll get a free ounce of silver. Claim that free silver and learn more. That website again is buytexasgold.com. Be sure and mention my name, Chris, when you reach out to them, buytexasgold.com. Here's their number, okay? 855-839-2728. At Texas Bullion Exchange, the focus is on helping you preserve what you've worked so hard to build. Protect that wealth. Keep it safe from inflation. Tangible assets like gold and silver, not paper promises. That's what they can do for you. BuyTexasGold.com or call 855-839-2728. Be sure you mention Chris when you give him a ring.
Hey, there's Chris Stigall. You know, this past summer, I went on a cruise with Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Mike Gallagher, my Salem radio colleagues, and I met so many listeners like you who have been on my PhD weight loss program journeys, and I decided for myself it was time to jump in. I wanted to give this Dr. Ashley everybody's been talking about call myself. Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team customize plans for your body to make weight loss simple, and they provide 80% of your food at no additional cost. They treat your whole person, and so I've decided to join so many of you. Join Sebastian Gorka, join Mike Gallagher, and all the weight they've lost, I'd like to do it myself. I've decided to call up my PhD weight loss. I hope you'll join me. Maybe we can start this weight loss journey together. Reach out, get started. Tell them I sent you and said hi. I'd love to hear how you're doing at 864-664-1900. That's 864-664-1900 or myphdweightloss.com. Don't forget to tell them Chris Stigall is going to start losing weight with you.
Hey, how you doing? Welcome in. The Thursday edition of the show, we're rolling along. 100 Days of Trump this week. We thought it would be a good opportunity to check in with Jim Pfaff, who is president of the Conservative Caucus. He kind of keeps a sharp eye on Congress for us and keeps us honest. And I value his input here because no doubt of his conservative bona fides. And this audience is really split, Jim, and I welcome you back in. Really, really split on the tariff issue. How split, I can't say, but I know that there is healthy disagreement in this audience who call themselves conservatives, who are even saying things like Trump is destroying the conservative brand, this populism stuff, this tariff stuff. This is not who we are as a party. He's wrecking everything. Let me play for you Senator Rand Paul, Jim, if I could, yesterday. Trying to throw a monkey wrench in this tariff notion altogether, saying that's got to come from us, not him. Tried to get it to the floor for a vote. It ended up failing, but here's Senator Rand Paul, 1781, fellas.
You know, there was an old-fashioned conservative principle that believed that less taxes were better than more taxes, that if you tax something, you got less of it, so that if you place a new tax on trade, you'll get less trade. There was also this idea that you didn't do taxation without representation. That idea goes not only back to our American Revolution, it goes back to the English Civil War as well. It goes back to probably Magna Carta. I mean, for hundreds of years, the English were arguing of the supremacy of Parliament, that Parliament would be able to have the power over the king. So when we were leading up to the revolution, the cry from James Otis was, taxation without representation is tyranny. This was the words of James Otis, but they still ring true today. It should not come as a surprise that a country founded on a tax revolt, one person is not allowed to raise taxes. Our founding fathers saw this and said no.
Okay, so Jim Pfaff, I'm going to ask you. I don't disagree with anything he just said. Is there a but, comma?
Oh, big but. First, two things about this. Wrong battle. We got much worse battles that we need to be fighting in terms of what Congress needs to change in its behavior, which is far worse than any negatives that my friend Rand Paul, and I have a lot of respect for Rand, but, it's far worse than anything Rand is talking about there. And I think that some of the arguments are worth having. Do we want to have a president setting tariffs? Well, Congress made that decision some time back. They said, yes, the president may do this, and that's why he has the authority to do it. But here's one other point that is easily missed in the tariff debate, and that's this. The unfairness that exists in other countries, the willingness of our elected officials, talk about taxation without representation, to allow China to continue running roughshod over reality and really stealing much of our wealth. They still are intellectual property. They are treated like a third world country at the WTO, which we shouldn't submit to anyway, but they are treated like a third world country there, even though they're the second largest economy in the world. We've given up a lot of our wealth to certain other countries because of stupid trade deals we make. And then the last point I'll make is this, from the libertarian perspective that he comes from, and frankly I do too, about limited government and limited regulation in the economy. We need to make bilateral trade deals with countries that are fair on both sides. We've been needing to do this for a long time, and I come from the Austrian school of economics thinking. I really do believe we need to have zero tariffs if we can. The problem is every one of our trade deals favors the other country. We sort of started this right after World War II, when, though we spent a lot of money, we were not a destroyed country. We wanted to allow countries to refresh themselves, and we kind of gave them extra benefits. That scenario's gone. Donald Trump is, in my opinion, right to take this battle on and try to reset things.
Jim Pfaff is the president of the Conservative Caucus, theconservativecaucus.org. And as you say in your mission statement, create a grassroots conservative network uniting people of widely varying backgrounds in peaceable defense of our country, Constitution, and common values. Defense. Defense, defense, defense. Provide for the common defense. That's what I always like to point to. That's the preamble. That's the first action item in the preamble, as you know. Provide for the common defense. China is eating our lunch. If we do not tackle that monster known as China, it's just a matter of time. And Trump is doing something really hard. And Jim, I was just talking about this tomorrow. The hobby industry, my family personally, is in the model train business, and it's a lucrative one, and it's one that millions of Americans participate in as hobby and as a business, as living. They're being killed if this tariff thing continues, because most of the trains are made in China. No surprise. And so there's this healthy discussion that industries like theirs, and I'm sure many others that I don't even know, we're all kind of staring ourselves in the face thinking, well, here we are. Our business is built on what's made in China. And I think we all acknowledge, most of us acknowledge, that makes us vulnerable. But in the short term, this is a really uncomfortable place to sit. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. But it's a bed that we made. Over a far worse problem near the founding of our country, slavery. Thomas Jefferson said, it's like holding a rabid dog by the ears. You don't want to let go of, you dare not let go of it, but you know that you need to get rid of it, so to speak. And that's a far worse situation than trade with China, but it's still a bad one. Listen, this is a really bad situation with them. We've gotten totally unbalanced, and people have been trying to argue that it's free trade that is the reason that we've opened up to China in precisely the way we did. Well, that's not really what happened. This was a lot of corporate interests who wanted to take advantage of low wages, which, by the way, are going away in China. Let's keep that in mind. The wages aren't as low in manufacturing over there as they used to be. It's still lower. But the problem that we have faced is we have literally handed our wealth over to them.
Yes.
And that's hard.
We're dependent. We're totally
grieve for your
dependent.
family.
And not just for, I don't say it to be a sad sack. It's not just that. It's pharmaceuticals.
Right.
I continue to say when COVID rolled through and our store shelves were bare and people started freaking out, that's because of our dependence on China. I mean, we are wholly dependent on stuff being put on container ships and being sent to us. And there are some that would argue, Jim, we'll never, ever not be that because we just can't make things here. Too expensive, people won't do the work, whatever. What do you say to that as a conservative?
Well, take the model train industry your family's in. I mean, I'm sure it's a decent product that's coming from China over there, but I also know that at least the way our manufacturing base has historically been, we've always been at the very top end of manufacturing. So if you'd like a high-end model train, you probably would, at least historically, wanted that made here and not there. They do cut corners. We have had things that China manufactured, particularly in the dog food industry. Remember this not long ago? There was a bunch of poison coming in dog food over here that China was making. There are real risks of doing that. Listen, I don't care if pharmaceuticals or anything might be manufactured in some other country if the trade deal is fair. I do not want and have not wanted. I opposed most favored nation status for China back in the late 90s. I screamed and yelled about it while conservatives at the time were pushing for it. But I don't mind if manufacturing happens in another country. I don't want our manufacturing, as it has over the last 30 years, to be unnaturally removed from our economy. We have to set this back straight.
I had Erin McGuire, a Republican strategist, in studio with me yesterday, and I asked her point blank. Now, caveat, she did do some work for Thune, and she has friendship with Thune, a relationship personally. But I asked her, I said, can we trust John Thune? Will he deliver? I asked many House Republicans, and most of them this week, Jim, were very pleased with John Thune and said he came to us, he promised us things. We haven't had that before. We certainly didn't have it with Mitch McConnell. How do you feel about this Senate bringing home the big, beautiful bill? I think the House has a better shot, oddly, which I wouldn't have said before.
Yeah, it is kind of odd, and frankly, I have some concerns about it other than the taxes. I think the taxes are tax cuts, even the new ones that Trump has proposed, are going to make it through the House bill. John Thune, listen, I don't trust any leadership in a Republican Congress. As I've told you, as I've said many times publicly, the weak aspect of the Trump agenda is Republicans in Congress. That said, John Thune did get the nominees through. I mean, that was very helpful, and we've got a great bunch of people that are in the Trump administration that they did. But I get concerned when Thune said this week that, we have rules over here we got to deal with and blah, blah, blah. Listen, they can change the rules with a majority vote if they want to. And this particular rule is not one that would destroy whatever sense of decorum or structure that people in the Senate have historically, which, by the way, most of what the Senate does in its rules is not historical. But this needs to happen because it's good for the American people. And I want $1.5 trillion of cuts that they promise to happen in the first 2 years, not in the out years of 10 years that are never going to materialize anyway. That's only a projection. So
Jim Pfaff at the Conservative Caucus, my friend. I appreciate your insights as always. Thank you very much for boiling down some tough stuff. We're having a healthy discussion in this country as conservatives right now. It's time we have it. Thanks, Jim. More in a minute. Good to be with you this morning, folks. I hope you are well. We know you have a lot of choices of shows you can listen to and watch, and so we're grateful that you choose ours. Sincerely, I am. 855 Stigall is how you reach me. Thanks for listening on great Salem radio stations all over the country. Thanks for watching on the Salem News Channel if you do. Get the app so you can take it along with you on your device, however you like watching. You can stream this thing easily. Got a friend of mine in Pittsburgh yesterday who texted me, his mother, bless her, he said, Mom was bummed because she missed your special with Larry last night on the Salem News Channel at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much. I think we're going to try to get that up if it's not already up at Salem News Channel, so you can watch it if you'd like. But that's what's nice about the Salem News Channel app. You can take it along on your phone, click Watch Live, and You can listen or watch anytime you want. And, of course, the podcast is always available, too, at chrisstigall.com. Let's go to the phones. Waiting very patiently in Missouri, it's Dan. Hey, Dan, I'm glad you called. Thanks for your patience today. What's on your mind?
Oh, hello, and no problem. You're welcome. Second-time caller, eventually long-time listener, if that makes sense.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm grateful.
You're welcome. I have a question, or actually a statement preempting a question, if that's all right.
The court will allow it. I'm just having fun. Yes, of course. It's all yours.
Thank you. Did you know, I don't know if you ever heard of these guys, but they're called Armstrong and Getty. And have you ever been told that you sound just like Joe Getty of those two guys that's on the radio, generally in Sacramento? They're on KSTE and they're syndicated. But
yeah,
and
I've never met either of them. I am familiar with their show. They seem like very nice guys. You think I sound like one of them?
Yes, you do. You sound like Joe Getty. If you ever get a chance to listen to them, generally you can find them on iHeart, on KSTE, or even KMZQ. They come on right after some of the in Las Vegas. They come on right after some of the shows that's on here. But at any rate, do you think, and I hope he doesn't, but do you think that I hope Trump stays strong with Putin? Because I'm thinking he's just trying to bide his time, just like China and their leader. They're just biding the time, waiting for Trump to get out of office to go back to business as usual.
Yeah, well, here's what I'd say about that. I think, and this is just my opinion, I don't know anything about anything, and I appreciate the call, Dan, but I would say this rare minerals deal with the Trump administration, and again, for those of you that either don't follow it or didn't know about it, let me just quickly refresh your memory. We talked about it a little earlier. Ukraine has signed a deal with the United States giving the U.S. access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals as they continue to work with the Trump administration in an effort to end the 3-year war with Russia. Here's what I believe strategically this does. And again, I'm just a guy with an opinion here. I don't have any strategic insights. I haven't sat down with Keith. I'd love to have our friend Keith Kellogg back someday. He's hip deep in the middle of these discussions. Maybe we can get him back. I'd love to talk with Besant about it. I'd love to talk with Pete Hegseth about it. I'm no warmonger. I don't want us engaged in any kind of combat whatsoever. But here's what I think Trump says to a guy like Zelensky. Look, man, we've given you tons of money. I know the old fossil kept telling you all the time, whatever it takes, as long as it takes. The gravy train is done. We're just done sending you money limitlessly for all time. It's a rat's nest, and nothing good is coming of this. However, you guys are sitting on stuff we need. Rare earth minerals. So here's the deal. I can't keep telling my fellow Americans whatever it takes, as long as it takes, to fend off Putin, who we both agree is a bad guy. I don't think Donald Trump thinks he's a good guy, despite what the left continues to assert about Trump. Trump knows Putin's a bad guy, but Trump knows that Putin's holding the hot hand. He just is. They got the resources, the strength, the might. They will grind Ukraine into a pulp over time. And you want to talk about whatever it takes, as long as it takes, they're in it for the long haul. Russia is, no doubt about it. Here's how that scenario changes, in my opinion. The United States starts doing serious business in Ukraine, real business, meaningful business to our economy. What does that mean? Now suddenly, we, as the American taxpayer and consumer, now we have interests in Ukraine, business interests, national security interests. If we're mining rare earth minerals for our needs, our production, what have you, whatever rare earth minerals go into, if you want to make those stupid electric cars or whatever, that's a way to do it without depending on China. Now, you use the heft and the military might and the resources of the United States government and our Defense Department to help defend Ukraine. That's how you permanently keep Russia at bay and say, you're not going to tread on Ukraine because we're there doing business. And if you tread on Ukraine, you tread on us, and now we'll have a problem. I think that's how you back Putin off without having to fire a shot. That's what I think. Maybe that's overly simplistic. Someone can correct me, and I'm sure you will, via email if you'd like. Looking at Houston there. How are you, Houston? 1070 AM. Thanks a lot for listening to us there. Great to have you on the radio. Great to have you on the Salem News Channel. Great to have you on the podcast, if that's how you consume the show. Thanks a lot for joining us. It's always fun to check in on our live cameras all over the country. If you watch, take the Salem News Channel app along with you. You click watch live, and it's real easy. Then you can sit here and stare at the show. And, if that's your thing, if you want to take us along and watch, feel free. Go for it. Hope you do. 855 Stigall is the telephone number if you want to weigh in today. By the way, tomorrow's Open Line Friday. I realize I've not been able to get to everybody this week because we have been chock-a-block full of things to do. But I do want to get a couple of calls in because people have been so patient, like Tom in Reading, Pennsylvania. Tom, thanks a lot for your patience this morning. How are you?
I am well. I was kind of disturbed this morning when I saw the news about all these fires going on in Israel. My bottom line anymore, as far as Iran goes, that time has ran out for them a long time ago, and we should not be fooling around with them and letting them buy more time and just blow up their nuclear factories and stuff like that. That's it. End of conversation on that fact. And Putin ain't nothing but a bully. He started the war. So why don't we just put the borders back where the war before you even started? You're
what would be known as an escalationist, Tom. You'd be accused of escalating wars and getting us involved in wars, Tom. How would you answer that?
It's just a matter of time until we're going to be in World War III. Let's face it. And the tariffs is resetting the economy for America and its future. And if Americans can't tighten their belts like our fathers did during World War II and our mothers did, then, Donald Trump is not Mickey Mouse magician. It's going to take time. And we're going to have to tighten our belts to reset our economy and make America great again like it was during World War II, an industrial giant, when Washington and big business sold us out so they could make more money in their pockets. That's the bottom line. Okay. There's no fooling around, about
All right.
that.
So you're talking about the economy now, which I appreciated, Tom. We kind of we jumped in a couple of different topics there, but it is interesting, that last one you made. I don't share your point of view that we're inevitably headed for World War III. However, you do say something there about the economy that's interesting, and a number of you have said something similar, in fact, just today. Rio on X writes this: Chris, I'm not sure why people didn't plan for tariffs. Everyone knew the tariffs issue with China was coming and should have prepared accordingly. Real patriots should understand it and deal with it. It won't be long before it's resolved. How about that, Fast Eddie? That's kind of tough from Rio. You should have known this was coming. Now, I did, to be fair to Rio here, I did say these people that are looking at their portfolios and getting upset, I have said, if you have an investment advisor worth his or her salt, I should think you would have had a discussion about what the election of Donald Trump would have meant if you were paying attention. I did say that.
Yes,
right?
That's a good point, yes.
I don't think that's unfair. So Rio is saying, look, if you run a business that's wholly dependent on China, why didn't you do a better job thinking ahead? Is that unfair or not?
That's a tough one, Chris, just because there are so many businesses. I don't know. This touches so many different sectors of business, so I don't know that that's totally fair.
I wouldn't say it to my in-laws. And by the way, tomorrow I think we're going to try to talk. My in-laws are in, if you're just joining the show, they're in the model train business, the hobby business, and most of their products are made in China. And so I'm going to talk with one of the guys that runs the company that one of my in-laws works with and for. I think almost exclusively, I don't want to overstate it, but almost exclusively make every single thing they sell in China. And now they're saying it's so expensive, what's coming with this tariff stuff, we may have to just shut down as a business. Now, it's hard for me to look a guy whose company has been around in Tennessee for a long time, who's been making this product and selling it for a long time. It's hard for me to say, well, man, you should have known. Maybe he voted for Trump. I don't even know that he did. But if he did, you should have known maybe your business was going to hurt and blow a tire because of looming tariffs. It's hard for me, not running a business, to say you should have prepared and you should have known. Now, his is unique, I think, because do you have the capacity? This is where you have to have like a longer range conversation. Why weren't we making model trains in the United States? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to have that conversation tomorrow. And not because I'm necessarily fascinated with the subject of model trains. I am fascinated with this business story. Why are there small businesses that are doing well in this country making all of their products in only China? Why is that so? How does that dynamic exist? I genuinely want to know. Not because I'm being antagonistic. I want to learn.
And I want to learn what it would take then to make model trains in the United States. And maybe they say, well, it's too expensive. Let's talk about why. Trump's trying to tackle these issues. Why would someone decide it is cheaper to make their product in China and then sell it to Americans, as opposed to making it here, made by Americans, and selling it to Americans? I think we all understand labor costs are high, rules and regs are high. There's a lot of reasons why, but it's also, there's an element of, let's be honest, there's an exploitive nature to a country like China using slave labor and bad actors keeping young people with tiny hands working day and night without the work rules and regs that the United States has, making pennies on the dollar compared to what an American worker would make. We do have a problem. I'm not suggesting this is my in-laws or anybody in the hobby trains, so don't email me angry notes. I'm just saying, as a culture, I think we have gotten very comfortable with the idea, well, that's them over there. That's how they get it done, whatever. As long as it gets here in the container and I can get it on my shelves, out of sight, out of mind. Trump is making us stare this reality in the face, and it is a violently uncomfortable one. And I do not have an answer or a prediction for how it ends, how we necessarily fix it, if it can be fixed. I don't know. Will there be businesses that just collapse because the only way they can exist is if China makes the stuff they sell? Maybe. And then we have to have a discussion about what does that mean? Is that a net positive or a net negative for the country that a company would shut down entirely here in the United States because their dependence on China is so great they can't function without them? I can't answer it. This is complicated. It's very, very difficult. It's challenging. It's personal to a lot of you. I understand that. I understand cheering tariffs and a restructuring of the economy is not the most inherently conservative thing. It is certainly not the brass button Mitch McConnell way of doing business, which is just full steam ahead, status quo. Let's keep that market ticker that we watch in the corner of cable news going up, 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 up every day. My 401k looks great. That feels good. Whatever. China can do what it does as long as that thing keeps ticking up and I feel good and my business buddies are happy. Whatever. That's their problem over in China. That's, the next generation's problem economically, whatever. I'm happy. I got mine. Trump is forcing all of the communities out there that say, I'm happy, I've got mine, to stare themselves in the face and say, is this sustainable long term? Answer, no. And it's a very uncomfortable answer when we all have to look in the mirror and say, no, this isn't sustainable, because it means short-term pain, real difficulties, maybe a wholesale folding of a business or two or three or more. Is it worth it? The American public will decide. Maybe not. But I do know this. I do not want to rely on China for our needs as we do right now. I just don't. I don't ever again want to hear we're out of medicine that could save people's lives. I don't ever again want to say our store shelves are bare because we're waiting for the shipping container from China to get here. I don't think we can put ourselves in that position. I don't want to hear that China makes more ships in one of their Navy yards than we do in all of ours combined in the course of a year. That's disgusting. We are the United States of America. And we're getting pantsed like that by China, who would love nothing more than to have global dominion? That can't happen. So what's my answer in the short term to people who say this sucks, it hurts my business, it hurts my bottom line? I don't know. I don't have something smart to say about that. I just know as a country we can't continue this way. Mary's in Florida. Mary, I'm glad you called. Welcome in.
Thank you. I'm a Hewitt transplant and first-time caller, and I love your show, Mr. Stigall.
Oh, I am thrilled to hear that. Thank you so much. Hughes moved to the afternoons. I just saw him on Fox with Jesse last night. We're thrilled for him. The Fox people have picked him up. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah. I've been following all of y'all still.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Thank you, Mary. We're grateful.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to talk about the long-term marriage that we U.S. citizens have had with China. And I have a personal experience with a family that got on the gravy train way back over 20 years ago when, things were really ticking up as far as U.S. business in China. In fact, we allowed our teenage daughter to visit the family and their children there. I still can't believe I allowed this daughter to go and be on the Great Wall, et cetera, et cetera. I've told her now I wouldn't let her put her big toe in China.
So you had I just got to cut to the chase, Mary. You had some friends that were doing business. They built a business basically in China. Is that about right? And your daughter went to visit them is the point. And so what about that?
Like I said, it's time to pull the plug, divorce this quote unquote lady. They got in bed with this cheating, greedy. I call her the lady. The red lady. It's time to divorce them. We got to have a divorce. We got to get it done. It's been a good ride.
Yeah, Mary, here's the thing. And again, I don't disagree. I think you just heard what I said. I think most Americans know this has to change. But here again, I have a personal family story where literally yesterday I was texting back and forth with my in-laws who are part of an industry that would likely collapse if this continues. And I'm not saying this to cry in my beer or cry for them. That they weren't reaching out to me to cry either. They were just telling me the reality on the ground for them. And I don't think the hobby industry is alone. And so I am praying about this and thinking about this constantly because I don't know what this means. I do know it is not going to be comfortable for every American. I also know that a lot of us who don't have business ties to China can kind of cockily sit back and go, well, that's right, turn the screws to China. Let's make it hurt, because we don't really inherently see any problem for us and our situation. So I want to be sensitive about it. I want to be realistic about it. I want to be smart about it. We're going to try to do more at the Harump Society tomorrow about it and here on the show as well. Beautiful shot from the New Jersey side of the river. Probably can't. Looks like that camera's mounted in Camden. I'm watching on the Salem News Channel, gang. If you're listening, our Philadelphia's AM 990 The Answer, my home base in Philadelphia. If that's where you're listening, you can't see our beautiful shot. But this beautiful shot on the Salem News Channel across the river from the Camden side, where Campbell's Soup resides. Beautiful shot of the cityscape of Philadelphia. Beautiful sunny day today. Telephone number 855-STIGAL is how you reach me. Let's go to Ricardo in Tennessee. Hey, Ricardo, I'm glad you called. Good morning. All right, Ricardo's busy. That's okay. We'll try Mamie in Ohio. Maybe we'll get Ricardo back in a minute. Hey, Mamie, good morning.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
Good. Glad to hear it. I love your show. I caught you back in January, and it's just great. You helped get my day rolling.
Oh, bless you. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm with you. I'm with Trump. Trust the timeline. Trust. No one should be saying they didn't know that the tariff situation was coming. I feel very badly for these people. In fact, I have a cousin. She just got laid off. She did work for a very large international oil testing company. I feel badly for her, and I feel badly for all these people. But you cannot tell me, or you shouldn't be telling me, that they didn't know that this was coming. If they can't be looking downrange and looking at the economy in general. And I've been looking at this ever since the lockdown 5 years ago. I knew something was, if the economy wasn't going to tank and we didn't get into a civil war, we would have been darn lucky. So I feel badly for these people, and it's going to be rough, but I don't know what else to do except, like you, Chris, I'm praying for them. I'm praying for them in our country.
We do. We do. We got to pray for the country, and ultimately there's a Lord on the throne that's going to have His way with us, regardless of what we do or say or argue about here. So I do believe that, Mamie, and thank you for the call. It is personal to so many millions of Americans, and I do get it. And tomorrow I'm going to try to personalize it even more. I promised my in-laws that I would do a segment, at least, an interview with someone in this industry, that is the hobby industry, if you're just joining me, whose products are primarily made in China. And that they may, after decades of business, they may just close up entirely because it's too expensive in the midst of this trade battle with China to continue to do business, and customers simply couldn't absorb what they would have to charge to absorb the tariffs. And so these are real stories of real struggle and sacrifice, and by the way, these are people that voted for Trump. That's what makes this all the more complicated. It's not like it's Democrats who hate Trump's guts. It's people that voted for Trump. And, you know, I think some people can sit on the sidelines and say, well, then you should have known you voted for a guy that probably was going to make business tough for you. I have a hard time saying that. I don't think I'd say it that way. I don't know. So I want that perspective. I don't make things in China and sell them, so I don't understand the process. I don't understand. Could I take my business and bring it here and do the same thing? I don't know the realities of that. So I think it's good for all of us who don't, like me, to get an education here tomorrow. I hope you'll come back because that's what I'm going to try to do. Activist judges continue to be an issue. Daily Wire, here's how activist judges fought Trump's agenda in the first 100 days. From blocking deportations of gang members to keeping men and women's prisons, activist judges have taken up the mantle of the left during the first 100 days of Trump's term. He opened his second administration with a rapid series of executive orders. Just a few of the orders that have been held up since Trump got to work. Blocking the dismantling of the United States Agency for Global Media. Another judge said Trump could not end Joe Biden's parole program. He let 500,000 migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela into the country. Another judge said the Department of Agriculture could not freeze funding to Maine over its decision to let boys play in girls' sports. The Department of Homeland Security was interrupted from revoking protected status of 348,000 Venezuelans shielded from deportation by Biden. Another judge said the Trump administration could not facilitate the return of a suspected gang member. As you know, he's one of the more famous high-profile ones. Another judge said Trump could not pull funding from sanctuary cities that defied federal immigration law. Another judge said the Trump administration was not allowed to move male prisoners who identify as women to female prisons. Another judge said the Defense Department had to allow people who identify as trans to get their surgeries, courtesy of your tax dollars. Another judge said deported gang members can't happen under the Alien Enemies Act. Another judge said that, of course, the MS-13 gang member Kilmar Obrego Garcia must be returned. Yet another judge said Trump could not implement an executive order that requires voters to show ID. And another judge said Trump could not put a blanket pause on foreign aid funding. That's just some of it. Today from the Washington Times, judge sets free Palestinian student Trump is trying to deport. You think we have a judiciary, a rabid lawfare problem in this country? We do. These are the same activists that tried to jail Trump. Now they're trying to thwart Trump. It's their only means. Democrats have no other way. Congress has the opportunity. They could put a stop to this too if they wanted, but we're trying to get the big, beautiful bill passed. I don't want to put too much on their plate, heaven forfend. So that's a wrap for another Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks for committing to it, listening to it all the way through. You're a fighter. I like that about you. Hope you'll leave it a 5-star review and a written review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll see you next time here on the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.